She served hundreds of customers every day without a second thought. But when one man stepped up to her food truck, something changed. His clothes were simple. His voice was calm. Yet she looked at him and made a decision that would soon haunt her forever. What she didn't know was that this stranger carried a past tied deeply to her own childhood, and a future that would expose her hidden prejudice to the world. This moment was not just about one mistake. It became a lesson about judgment, memory, and regret. But what happened next would shock everyone watching. It was a normal afternoon at a small food truck parked near a busy city street. The smell of grilled food floated through the air as customers lined up, one after another. The owner, a woman in her early 40s, moved quickly between orders, focused only on keeping her business alive. This food truck was her world. It paid the bills, kept her independent, and gave her a sense of control in a life that had once felt unstable. Years earlier, she had grown up in the same neighborhood where the truck now stood. Life had not been easy back then. Dreams were simple, and survival came first. Over time, she built distance from her past, believing she had left those memories behind. Every day looked the same: serve customers, count money, close late, and repeat. Across the city, another life was unfolding very differently. A man who once shared her childhood streets had grown into someone powerful and wealthy. His success was quiet, his presence humble, and his past carefully hidden behind a simple appearance. He did not travel with crowds or attention. He preferred to walk unnoticed, remembering where he came from. On this particular day, his path crossed with hers in the most ordinary way possible, at a food truck window. There were no cameras, no warning signs, and no idea that two lives once connected were about to collide again. The moment felt small, almost invisible. But beneath that simple exchange was a history neither of them was prepared to face. And hidden inside that brief encounter was a choice that would soon expose something much deeper than hunger. What began as a routine afternoon was quietly turning into a moment that would reveal judgment, memory, and a truth neither could escape. The line at the food truck moved slowly, but when the man reached the front, everything seemed to pause. He stood quietly, waiting to place his order like everyone before him. His clothes were plain, his posture relaxed, his eyes calm. There was nothing about him that suggested wealth or importance. To the owner, he looked like just another customer passing through. But her expression changed the moment she noticed his skin color. Her hands stopped moving. Her smile faded. A sudden tension filled the space between them. Without saying much, she shifted her attention away from him and began serving the next person in line. The man remained standing there, invisible in plain sight. At first, he thought it was a mistake. He waited. Then he watched as more customers were served ahead of him. Some glanced back, confused. Others avoided looking at him at all. The smell of food mixed with the quiet discomfort of the moment. The air felt heavier with every second that passed. A memory stirred inside him. Years ago, this same street had been filled with laughter, bike rides, and shared meals. This place had once felt safe. Now, standing there, he felt something colder: judgment without words, rejection without reason. The owner avoided his eyes. Her movements became sharp and rushed, as if trying to erase his presence. What she saw was not a man with a past or a future. She saw only a stranger who did not belong. And in that decision, she revealed more about herself than she realized. People in line began to whisper. Phones were lifted, pretending to check messages but secretly recording. A small moment was becoming something much larger. The man felt the weight of every stare. Not because he was afraid, but because he understood exactly what was happening. He had seen it before in boardrooms, in hotels, in places where his success was hidden behind his skin. Still, he did not step away. He stood firm, calm, and silent. The longer she ignored him, the louder the injustice became. Inside the owner's mind, fear battled pride. Business had been slow for weeks. She had learned to judge customers quickly: who would pay, who would cause trouble, who belonged. Her past had taught her to build walls instead of bridges. And now, those walls were rising higher with every second. Then something unexpected happened. Someone from the line spoke up, pointing out that he had been waiting first. The tension cracked open. The owner hesitated. Her hands trembled as she finally looked at him again. For a brief moment, their eyes met. And in that instant, a flicker of recognition passed through her face. It was not clear at first. Just a shadow of a memory. A street corner. 2 children running barefoot. A shared lunch. A forgotten promise. The present and the past collided inside her mind. But before that truth could surface, the moment shattered. The crowd grew restless. The cameras kept rolling. And the man, still silent, reached into his pocket, not for money, but for something that would change everything. The man slowly pulled a worn photograph from his pocket. The paper was creased, faded by time, but the image was still clear. 2 children stood side by side in front of a small house on this very street. One was a young girl with tired eyes and messy hair. The other was a boy with a bright smile and dusty shoes. They were laughing, unaware of the years that would separate them. The owner stared at the photo. Her hands froze in midair. The noise of the street faded into silence. Memories rushed back like a storm. Shared lunches, borrowed toys, promises whispered about escaping poverty together. The stranger in front of her was no stranger at all. He was the boy who once walked her home. The boy who had known her before fear and judgment took over her life. The crowd leaned closer. Phones continued to record. The tension was unbearable. Her face drained of color as realization struck. The man she had ignored and judged was not only someone from her past. He was now one of the most successful figures in the city. Wealth had changed his life, but it had not erased who he was. And in that moment, the truth burned brighter than shame. The injustice of what had just happened became impossible to hide. It was no longer a quiet act of discrimination. It was public, visible, permanent. The man did not raise his voice. He did not show anger. His silence carried more weight than any accusation ever could. He stood there, calm and steady, while the world watched her face the consequences of her choice. The owner felt the walls she had built begin to crumble. Fear gave way to regret. Pride collapsed under the weight of memory. The moment she had tried to avoid became the moment she could never escape. The street that once felt ordinary now felt like a courtroom. Every eye demanded an answer. Every second pressed her deeper into the truth of what she had done. This was no longer about food. It was about who she had become, and who she had turned away. As the cameras rolled and the crowd held its breath, the future of both their lives balanced on a single realization, one that could not be taken back. What would she do now, knowing the man she rejected was the same child she once promised never to forget? The silence did not last long, but its weight stayed behind. The owner lowered her eyes, no longer able to pretend. The moment had stripped away every excuse she had built over the years. What began as a simple act of judgment had turned into a mirror showing her exactly who she had become. She quietly served him at last, her hands shaking, her face marked by something deeper than embarrassment, recognition and regret. The man accepted the food without anger or pride. He did not seek revenge. He walked away with the same calm he had arrived with, but the impact of the moment followed him. Not because he had been rejected, but because it reminded him that success could not protect him from being seen as less than human. His wealth could not shield him from a bias rooted in fear and habit. By nightfall, the videos had spread. People debated, argued, and reflected. Some defended, others condemned. But many saw themselves in that moment, either standing in line, watching in silence, or standing behind the counter, making a choice without thinking of its cost. For the owner, the food truck was no longer just a business. It became a reminder of the past she had denied and the person she still had the power to become. For the man, it became proof that the struggle against judgment was not over, even for those who had risen above it. This was not just one encounter on one street. It was a story about how quickly we decide who belongs and who does not. It was about how memory can heal or divide. And it was about how one small act can reveal a much larger truth about society. Because racism does not always shout. Sometimes it looks like silence. Sometimes it looks like turning away. So the question remains. When the next moment comes, when someone stands in front of you waiting to be seen, will you judge them by what you assume or by who they truly are?